Welcome to another edition of Talk City Greensboro, produced by GTN, featuring interviews and events happening around town. It's an easy way to stay in the know while you're on the go. Subscribe to Talk City on iTunes, Pandora, Google Play, or SoundCloud so you can keep up with what is going on in Greensboro City government and beyond. I'm your host, Rodney Dawson, and today I'm solo. No Rosemary, no Josh, but I have a great guest, and we have a fascinating conversation that my company's going to provide for me. Or for us. So have you ever seen the signs or office buildings and always wondered, what do they do there? And well, that question might surface a lot when hearing the title Register of Deeds. So we want to answer those questions today as best we can. And we have the Guilford County Register of Deeds here today, Mr. Jeff Thigpen. Thank you for joining us on Talk City Greensboro.
Glad to be with you, Rodney.
Absolutely. And so quickly, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you found yourself doing this kind of work here in Greensboro?
Well, when I was 5 or 7 years old, I didn't expect I'd be a register of deeds. But I grew up in Pender County in southeastern North Carolina. And
what's a city around there we can identify with?
A little town called Burgall,
Okay.
which is basically a road sign on the way to Wilmington, about 10 miles from Wilmington. My claim to fame growing up in Burgall was that I bagged Michael Jordan's grandfather's groceries.
Oh.
And his brother Larry dunked on a few friends of mine.
Okay.
But I went to Pender High School, which is near Laney. So I'm giving you Michael Jordan landmarks.
Right.
But went to Guilford College when I got out of high school, played baseball, and of course was exposed to a wonderful liberal arts institution over at Guilford.
What position?
I was a catcher.
Okay.
And we set the school record for wins my senior year, 2-time Old Dominion Athletic Conference champion.
Did you block the plate?
Oh yeah, all the time. I have a few concussions
Okay.
as a part of it. But I ended up getting involved in a number of ways locally in different organizations. In the mid '90s, I was a coordinator of something called the Servant Leadership School, which was ecumenical in nature, dealing with a lot of faith communities. Also with a group called the Beloved Community Center. There was a nationwide boycott back then that I was a part of, and so I got exposed to a number of fantastic business leaders in Greensboro, as well as the Pulpit Forum, which is African American ministers locally. And from that, it was a national issue that was resolved. And what got me to politics was I was getting my master's in public affairs at UNC Greensboro, and got the Martin Luther King Jr. Award that they have over there. And when I did, a couple of people came up and said, well, you thought about running for county commissioner. And I was 27 and eventually got elected. And at the time, I was the youngest one to ever be elected in Guilford County. But did that for 6 years and became registered of deeds in 2004. Got married, had kids, and my wife basically wanted me to get a real job.
Gotcha. I got a friend of mine. He's early to mid 20s.
Yeah.
And he's running for city council in Raleigh.
Awesome.
And I'm like, wow. He's already gotten 2 master's degrees, but just started early. He's very focused and focus driven, I should say that. At 27, you're running for a county commissioner.
Yeah.
What kind of focus does that take? Where did that come from?
Interesting. What's really important to note is that in early January of '98, I lost my father. And I was with him when he died, and in that moment, I like to say I was in this space between life and death, where I was with my dad. And when I came out of it, I just knew that I felt like I wanted to serve in a way that I grabbed onto one of the hardest things I could find and try to love it and make it better. And at the time, that was actually Guilford County Board of Commissioners. It's kind of like Gunsmoke. It's like Wild West. And I filed on the last day and had to run in a primary and a general election. And it took a lot of focus, and I was mourning my dad at that time. But I learned a lot about myself, and about 10 years later, I wrote a book called On Point, and the voice and values of young elected officials, where I interviewed young electeds all across the country. And I asked them several questions. One was, how'd you grow up? I think that if you're young and you want to consider a career in public service or elected office, a lot of it stems out of a story of our lives and why do we want to serve. And of course, number 2 is, if you run a campaign, what did you learn when you were running a campaign, or why did you decide to do that? If you get elected, what do you learn governing, and also what advice you would give to other young people. And in that book, I interviewed just a ton of people. and a couple of names I'll throw out that are in the book. Rashida Tlaib, who's first Muslim elected state legislature in Michigan. She's in Congress now. Kirsten Sinema, who is a senator in Arizona, who's now an independent. She was in it. Andrew Gillum, who ran for governor of Florida.
Right.
And there's a personal friend of mine, Kevin Killer, who's the head of the Agala Sioux Nation out in South Dakota. And I asked him all those questions and just learned a ton. And so, just kind of bookend it. I think that I would encourage people who, at this point in time, we're at a place in our country where people are, in so many ways, feeling rudderless, that we're looking for a sense of direction. And at the same time, there is this enormous reservoir of young people that are coming up that aren't tied to traditional politics, but they want to make their communities better. And I also learned women. We need to do an especially important effort of getting and helping support young women who want to run for elected office. And there are a lot of them out there. And I think that they are going to be really important for the next 50 years of our country in terms of our direction. And we need them involved. We need young people involved. And we need to reclaim a culture of civic spirit that I think would bring all of us together in the midst of all these divisions.
Like to see it back in the schools? Civics.
Absolutely. Would like to see civics there. And my whole point with young people is, when I called it On Point, was they're not the leaders of tomorrow. They actually are the leaders right now. And I'll give you an important example. Locally, there's a group called the Out of the Darkness Walk, and they do it for suicide awareness out at Trad Park. This year, there were probably 40 or 50 young people who were all teenagers that have either seen suicide, mental problems, and the need for mental wellness and wellness in general. And they've seen post-COVID struggle, and they believe in our community, and they're out there, being a part of a process in a community to help people come together around that issue. And so they're doing it in a lot of different ways. And I think we need to be able to see and acknowledge it.
I agree wholeheartedly. We're talking with County Register of Deeds, Mr. Jeff Thigpen, joining us here on Talk City Greensboro. And if you're looking on camera, you see I'm by myself today. My two cohorts are away, but you're now the Register of Deeds. And for those that don't know a whole lot about that position, I got a lot of paperwork here to help explain it to me, but they may not have it in front of them. What type of position is it? Is it elected, appointed, you're hired by the county or the state? Tell us.
It's elected, and I think you're right. Most people have no idea what I do until they get married, have a child, someone passes away in their family, they buy or sell a home, they get out of the military, or they need a passport. That's pretty important things.
Yeah.
And so my office on a very local level provides that information and processes to access them in a way that, again, is very local. And it is an elected position every 4 years. It's on the presidential cycle. I blink my eyes and I've been in this position 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so you've had to run each time. What, 5 times now?
5 or 6.
5 or 6?
Yeah, I got elected in 2004.
Now, let me ask you this. How much time, of the 4 years you hold the position, how much time has to be devoted towards the campaign?
Well, this is the way I describe it is, and this is the way I would encourage every person who is an elected official to describe it. You are campaigning every single day you are elected or you are running. So every single day I work with the public. How I deal with them, it is extremely public, and I'm very aware of it, and that I have to treat everybody with basic respect and dignity and have to give them the things that they need. With that said, you file, I think this year is 2024, which the filing period was 2.5 weeks in 2023, in December 2023, and then you usually have a primary and a general, and I was fortunate enough not to have any opposition this cycle, and I never take that for granted.
Right.
But yeah.
So it's
full time.
Yeah, birth certificate.
The main some things people really don't know about my office is that we're in Guilford County government. The sheriff's office and the Register of Deeds office are the only 2 elected department heads in the county.
Okay.
In the county government structure. What we deal with primarily are two things: land records. So when people buy and sell homes, we have a lot of local attorneys and banks and title companies and all that who use the documents filed in our office to buy and sell property.
Okay.
And it's done so that notice can be made of these transactions. It goes all the way back to like the 1700s in North Carolina, because the original too big to fail, I guess, was England. And when colonists came to the United States and developed what is modern state local government structure, intergovernmental structure, registrars of deeds were very important locally, because in England, if you lived at the top of the hill, usually they were the people that owned the land.
Right.
And then, as we get into, 1800s and the idea of people distributing land, ownership, registers offices track that.
Okay.
And as we can talk about later, those deeds included human beings, which was in terms of pre-slavery and into slavery. We had documents that had people listed as property on them. And so the land record side is really important. Then there's the vital record side, which is a person applies for a marriage license. They do it at the Register of Deeds office. Need birth certificates. For elementary school for your kids, you come see us. If someone dies in your family, you can get those records. And we added in several other things I can talk about, but we also have a local passport office, one of the few walk-in offices where if you're looking for a passport, first-time passport.
I'll need to come see you for that.
Absolutely. Come see us.
Now, you talked about all these vital records that are in everyday life. So I imagine, and you're located in Greensboro, and you also have an office in High Point. We can give the address out. But I imagine you're very busy. Do you have an idea of how many vital records you issue out annually?
Yes, I do. In terms of land records, I think this past year we had about 65,000 come through. Yeah, but that's down from around 90,000. And one of the things I'll explain about the land records part was we usually average about 70,000, 75,000 a year. And then when COVID hit, everybody thought our society was just going to stop. As it related to land transactions, it accelerated up to about 90,000 a year. So for 2 years, people were buying and selling property and all that kind of stuff at a level that we didn't know.
During COVID.
During COVID. And so while that was going on, I think the Fed and everybody started raising interest rates, and the housing stock availability began to get tight. There were a number of things that happened to where in this past year and a half, the overall real estate economy has tapered off, and there hasn't been as many transactions. I know that people are saying in the next year they may cut interest rates, do things like that, but
so you have to pay attention to things like that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And we're a revenue generating office, which means that more revenue comes in to the county for our for the county coffers than our operating expenses. So operating expenses are around $2.5 million. We bring in about $6.5-7 million a year. So that extra money goes to help fund schools, and law enforcement and DSS workers and general county government services. And so we're a small office, but we have an impact on county government operating revenue.
Before we get out of here, I do want to ask you about the slave deeds.
Yeah.
But kind of going along with that in the same vein, I noticed you call them value added. What are some of the things that, we talked about the main things, the vital records. What are some of the things the office offers that are considered value added or unique to the Guilford County office?
Yeah. The whole idea is that as a county government, we provide basic services that the North Carolina legislature and general statutes outline for us. Like I said, land and vital records. For my office, it's really important that we add value to those basic services, and some of those things are number one, we have like I mentioned, passport services where people can come in and get passports. In 2017, we started something called Guilford Think of It, which was the first in North Carolina.
Right.
And we partner with about 400 businesses to provide discounts on goods and services to veterans. as a way of showing our appreciation to them, and that is connected to my relationship with Guilford County Veteran Services and a number of behavioral health. That's a 988 behavioral health line that helps people with mental health crisis.
Okay.
There are tons of things that we do out of that connection to think of it to where now there's probably 36 counties in North Carolina that are offering Think of It programs through their register of deeds offices, and it's probably over 2,000 businesses that are doing it as well. So if veterans want to come in, they can file their original DD-214s. We'll give them a discount card, and they can just present it to these local businesses that we have on our website. And
So the DD-214 is the termination papers.
Yeah.
So you bring those in, and they'll get you started. So the vet listening can just or watching.
Absolutely, and we will, we'll do it on the spot, take about 15 minutes, and then you can go out to local businesses that, like I said, there's over 400 of them on our website, and it's a very popular program.
Can I ask you, explain like a marriage license? Walk someone through a marriage license right quick.
Okay, people want to get married, and so they can file for a license online at our website, guilforddeeds.com. The two applicants will fill out the information. They will come in. They'll present forms of ID. It's a $60 charge to get a marriage license, and it's good for 60 days. And then you'll have, once you pay the fee and get your ticket to get married, you will go out, and once you do it, you have the officiant sign on it, a couple of witnesses, return it back to us, and that will be on record as an official marriage. Get a certified copy of it, costs $10. And when you get that marriage license, you can get it in our office and be married anywhere in North Carolina. And after you get married, you just got to return the paperwork back to us once that is done. And of course, notable dates we're coming up on this year will be the 10th anniversary of same-sex marriage being passed in North Carolina. And I think we probably had 4,500 couples that have been married
In Guilford County?
Since 2014. And of course, again, we have birth certificates, which is a vital part of it.
Yeah, I was just there for that.
Yeah, so, and a lot of parents who have children going into elementary school, they come in the spring of that year. So if your child's going to kindergarten, you need to come see us or order it online. It's also available, in terms of that. Like I said, death certificates as well.
Now, if we come see you and we're paying, I think I ran into the issue, some of it's cash only or exact change. How does that work?
We have a statewide system that we use. It's through North Carolina Vital Records, and it's been an experimental system that we've worked. If you're born in 1971 and after that's been available, you have to pay cash, and you have to, exact name of what you're doing in order to get that birth certificate. For example, if you are born in Guilford County, we'll take cash, check, credit card, and come in, and it's very easy to do it that way. A little more complicated to do it through the statewide system, but it's available.
Okay, and I'm going to squeeze this in because I know we're running out of time here. You got a job to do, and you do it so well. But
okay,
go ahead.
I'll run through slave deeds of Guilford County.
Yeah.
We'll talk about. We did something called Lance Corporal Christopher Phoenix Jacob Levy Flag Retirement Program. Jacob was a Marine who died in Afghanistan, Native American. And while we love to name, and it's a flag retirement where if you have tattered flags and you want to turn them into us, we can, and we get them to scouting organizations to retire. But he had, I think there were 7 people around him when he was shot that got him to both safety and stabilized him for his mom, Amanda Jacobs Ballard, to be with him before he died. He was an organ donor, gave away 7 organs to 7 people. The people who were around him were white, black, Native American, Muslim, Christian, atheist. They were a lot of different people and who cared about him. And we see him as a young person as a model of service. Good Grief podcast series.
All right, talk about that.
That's a hard subject because we know that when we lose loved ones, we are both dealing with grief. And we're also dealing with a bureaucracy in settling estates. And so we knew that we needed to come up with a way to discuss everything from just understanding grief to understanding the bureaucratic institutions that go along with it. So we interviewed people from a wide spectrum of places, from Trellis and AuthoriCare, which are two palliative care end-of-life organizations, to people who talked about green burials. Pastor Reverend Bradley Hunt talked to us about the African American experience, and we had people who were Jewish who talked about their faith practices, and we looked at the body donation. We looked at we even interviewed Michael Moyer, who is the we said we got to interview a gravedigger. That was kind of an inside joke, and so we interviewed him. And the funny thing was, he was like, he's got this real nice country drawl, and he says, "Well, people talk about being buried 6 feet under, but they're really not." He's like, it's really like 55 inches, and so we get into all these kinds of, we came up with terminology. How do you understand, where did dead as a doornail come from?
Right.
So we unapologetically go into this space where we help people understand, that we can talk about death and dying, and that there are resources in our community that are important. My good friend Mary Rakestraw helped me create the name Good Grief because she was dealing with her husband, Frank, who died, and she kept going to places and she was saying, "Good grief, I'm trying to get this paperwork and I can't." And so we do that, and another value-added component of what we do is veteran coffees, is that we work with local veteran organizations around that as well. So,
So quite a bit.
Yeah.
Now, where can we check out Good Grief Podbean?
It's on our website at guilforddeeds.com. There are 30 podcasts that we have, and they're available on, Spotify, Apple,
Everywhere you can get your podcast.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
All right, and I wanted to make sure we got this in doing this Talk City podcast. But talk to us about the slave deeds. I'm sure folks recognize the name, but how entail? Give us a little detail about what you're doing there.
Yeah, well, when you go back in the land records in the Guilford County Registry of Deeds office, prior to slavery, African Americans in the United States were transferred as property, right, as a vital part of slavery. And what we did was we went back into our own records and found maybe 400 deeds that were literally the transference of people. And Buncombe County did that as well. And UNCG and North Carolina A&T and a number of organizations came together and have worked around a North Carolina Slave Deeds Initiative, which is around 26 counties in North Carolina that's been doing that.
How long has this been in place?
This has been going on for about 7 years, 7 or 8 years. And as you know, as an African American, when you get back prior to 1910, it is so hard to do any genealogical research whatsoever.
Right.
And so we went back and did all that. And in addition to that, we came up with an exhibit that we did. We did it both at the International Civil Rights Museum in Greensboro, and it was also in High Point. Locally, we focused on 4 families. One was the Donnell family, which was a very well-known local African-American name within a community here in the Goshen area. The Mendenhall family, which was Quaker, but they were half in and half out of slavery. And so they had slave owners and they had abolitionists. The third was the Moorheads. Moorheads in North Carolina were the precursors to modern progress, the railway system. The modern economy in North Carolina is a progressive economic state. And the fourth one was the Coffins, Vestal Coffin, Levi Coffin. They were the ones that were basically, over our dead bodies, the institution of slavery is evil, and we're going to stand up against it in every way possible. And so what we did was we took the deeds and we took the families and created some questions like, okay, do these slave deeds matter? Are they important? And if they are, how? And by having those 4 families as bookends, a lot of us have a hard time talking about race.
Right.
And so the Slave Deeds Initiative and the project has helped us raise questions where people can, on the one hand, localize race and understand the history of it, and at the same time personalize it in such a way that we can talk about it in a way that it's not an abstract concept. It's a history.
You're humanizing them.
That's right, humanizing it. And again, we have racially restricted covenants, which is part of it too, from maybe 1910 to 1940. A lot of times we understand, Lincoln, quote unquote, helped free the slaves, and then people skip to the Great Society programs and stuff like that. But people don't spend the time to talk about the basic underpinnings of that system in a way that we can both understand each other relationally, and that we can see that we have a common need to be able to work together to work through it in order to be able to get beyond a ton of these differences and systemic issues that come along with it that we have a hard time talking about.
And let me ask you this before you leave.
Yeah.
What's it like working in your office every day? And what type of people do you work around? What's the most fun thing about the people that you work around?
Yeah. We have 28 employees, and I've been there 20 years. And so in many ways, they're like family now. I mean, and a lot of people are career-oriented employees. They've been there a long time. Right now, we're in the post-COVID reality, which means that, and we're finding this all across, is that people are generally frustrated and have anxieties that you don't realize that they have. And so, part of it is every single day you get new and different people coming into your office who need things. And we hold the public trust. And I take that seriously because when I come in, I really want to be welcoming to people. And
I notice it's important for you. Sorry to cut you off. It's important for you to be inclusive as well.
Oh, absolutely. And that everybody in many ways are different. And at the same time, we're all alike. People don't want to have to park somewhere away and wait an hour to get served. Or I was going to say, feel like you're going to the DMV. But you know what? The DMV is actually getting better. Yeah. So it's kind of like, register deeds in DMV offices. Sometimes people kind of look at us and go, oh, man, we got to go down there. But I think we really have a reputation of being like a small town office in a bigger city, meaning that when you come in, we try to treat you well and get you in and out as best we can.
Are you always working? Even somebody stop you on your off hours and you have to answer questions still?
Oh, yeah. Okay. One little story. I have this dog, Alex, who we had to put down about 5 or 6 months ago. It was just horrible. Oh, gosh. Good grief. We did a Good Grief podcast on pet death.
You should.
Yeah. I mean, it's real, man.
It's real. I've been there.
And so I'm sitting in there, and we're putting my dog to sleep, and we get done. And then the vet looks at me after a few minutes and says, well, I know this is a, intense moment, but you signed our marriage license. So I was like, good deal, man. We're cradle to grave, everything in between. So yeah, it comes up a lot, and I really appreciate it because I just want to help people.
It shows.
Help people.
In the short time I've known you, it shows tremendously, and we appreciate you coming on Talk City Greensboro. We need to have you back, and we're just thrilled about the Good Grief podcast that you got going on. And so to learn more about the Register of Deeds, you may go to their social media sites found on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, and also we mentioned the Good Grief Podbean, as well as the Good Grief Guilford County Slave Deeds. You may contact the Greensboro office at 336-641-7556. That's 336-641-7556. And then you have the High Point office. That number is 336-641-6935. Register of Deeds, Mr. Jeff Thigpen, thank you for being our guest.
Thank you, Rodney.
Stay tuned in weekly by subscribing to Talk City Greensboro on iTunes, Pandora, and Google Play. And don't forget, you can download Talk City from SoundCloud. That's it for this week. Thank you for tuning in to Talk City. Be sure to watch GTN, your official source for news and information about the city of Greensboro. GTN is available on Spectrum Channel 13, AT&T UVerse Channel 99, and Lumos 31. GTN also streams live on Roku and the city's website at greensboro-nc.gov.